Today, I have a few housekeeping things that I want to get started with. Number one, if you are looking to unmute at any point, you unfortunately cannot unmute yourself. So just raise a hand and we'll get that if at any point you're wanting to talk or kind of communicate during questions. With questions, you can put those into our Q&A. There is going to be a few moments throughout this presentation where the presenters will ask you to answer questions in the chat. So just know you are able to do that. On top of those, know that today this webinar will be recorded and there is closed captioning for you to use if you are in need of that. Outside of those few things, all of this information will be sent to you within 24 to 48 hours after we finish here today, as well as the slides and materials being used. So don't feel the need to take out your phone, take any pictures while we're going along for information. You will get it in the future. Before we do pass it over to Benton, there are a few questions that I have for you today. I'll be launching some polls with two questions. If you want to take some time to answer those. Beautiful. I'm already seeing lots of answers. Number one, which partner do you represent? We're pretty across the board. Number two, where is your local area? A lot of Central Illinois so far. Alrighty. We'll share those results for you guys. Again, we're seeing a lot of Title I and a lot of Central Illinois, but a mix of everything. Thank you again for being here today. The last question before I pass it off is going to be an answer for you guys in the chat. We are wondering which LWIA are you from and what is your role in this process for today? So if you want to take a second and answer that into the chat, that would be wonderful. Again, we are asking what LWIA you are from, as well as what is your position or your role in this process. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for seeing lots of answers. There are a lot of us, so I'll give us a few, about 30 more seconds to kind of look over. Thank you again for answering what LWIA you're from and what your role is in this process. All right. Well, from there, I'm going to pass it off to our wonderful presenters, Benton and Tanya. Benton, you are good to go.
Great. Thank you so much for the intro. And yeah, my name is Benton McCarthy, and I'm a consultant with KEB who helps facilitate the implementation of WIO activities across the state. Today's training will focus on the MOU narrative, budget, negotiator roles, with an emphasis on what needs to happen at each step of the negotiation process and who's responsible for what. We would like this to be an interactive session. Like Mikhail said, there's a couple times we'll be asking you to, like you just did, throw a comment in the chat. So, and yeah, with me today is none other than Tanya Fry. Tanya, would you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am also with KEB and I work with the WIOA Technical Assistance Team, and we're happy to be here to help you with this webinar.
Thanks, Tanya. So we have three sections today that we're going to cover: impartial lead negotiator, program negotiator, and then the MOU and the budget, including signature pages. So this we did a similar presentation last year. This one, obviously, there's a lot of differences though, being the first year of the new 3-year cycle. And then we also just kind of refreshed a lot of things. And like we said, we want this to be a more interactive session than last year's. So before we move into negotiator roles, it's important to clarify what the annual MOU budget is and why it matters. The annual one-stop operating budget is a required component of the local MOU and serves as the formal agreement for how required partners share costs to operate the one-stop system. This is where partners document two main types of costs. First, there's infrastructure costs, expenses tied to the operating and the physical one-stop centers, such as facilities, security, technology. And then second are the local service delivery system costs, which support how services are delivered across the system and are identified and agreed upon locally. At the end of the day, the MOU budget captures the agreed upon decisions and sets clear expectations for partner participation and shared responsibility as we enter program year 26. So this slide shows how the MOU and the budget actually move through the negotiation process. The impartial lead negotiator coordinates the process and keeps both documents moving forward together. But the MOU and the budget are not developed in isolation. They constantly inform each other. As program negotiators, your role is to review both documents, confirm that what's written accurately reflects your program's commitments and costs, and flag any questions or needed changes. Those updates then flow back to the lead negotiator and are incorporated before everything is finalized. So the key takeaway here is that this is shared back and forth process. The MOU and the budget are built together, reviewed together, and finalized together. Alignment between the two is critical at every step. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Tanya and let her walk through the role of the impartial lead negotiator.
Thanks, Benton. So let's start with the impartial lead negotiator. This individual is designated by the local workforce board, and they serve as a neutral facilitator for the MOU and the budget negotiations. So their role is not to represent a specific program, but to guide the process, coordinate meetings, and ensure that all the required partners have that opportunity to participate. Next, we'll talk about the budget negotiator. In some local areas, the impartial lead negotiator and the budget negotiator may be the same person. In other areas, these roles are separate. The budget negotiator represents a specific program or partner and is responsible for providing accurate program information. So that would include FTEs, full-time equivalent, service delivery details, and budget impacts. Regardless of the structure, this role is critical to ensuring the final budget accurately reflects each partner's participation. Before negotiations begin, there's important groundwork that needs to happen. This is going to include confirming which partners are required for the upcoming program year, reviewing those prior year costs, verifying the FTE commitments, and understanding how services are delivered. So that's going to be whether they're on-site, off-site with direct linkage, or cross-trained staff. Lease information plays a key role in infrastructure cost discussions. Understanding what costs are included in the lease, what costs are billed separately, and how those costs are compared to the prior year helps partners evaluate proposed budget and ask informed questions during those negotiations. Now, we'll talk through, initial meetings, 1, 2, 3 meetings. Each area may have 5 meetings, and some of you may have 3. So the way that we have these meetings based through these slides does not impact the exact way any area needs to go through the negotiations. So the initial negotiation meeting, which all areas will have, is going to be after the pre-program form is submitted. The impartial lead negotiator will begin gathering information from the local areas. So again, like we said earlier, that's going to include collecting and confirming FTEs. Those FTEs may change from one year to another, so that's one of the most important pieces for each individual program. The information that's collected, that's going to help that negotiator prepare the preliminary budget estimates to bring to that first negotiation meeting discussion. The goal of this first meeting is to walk through the preliminary budget together, ask questions, and make sure everyone has a shared understanding before leaving that meeting and moving forward. Not every local area, just like I said, has the exact same number or order of meetings, but the overall process will be consistent across all areas. Following the initial meeting, a draft one-stop operating budget is going to be delivered from those costs discussed, including the FTEs to show how that will be shared across partners for their fair share. This draft should be shared with all required partners in advance of that meeting. That's giving the partners time to review the information, consult internally, and prepare questions or concerns. So what that means is the first meeting, you're going to go over the cost as a whole. So you'll have an idea of how much it's going to cost to run that center. Then by the time you make it to that second meeting, you're going to know what that cost is, how that cost is broken down and going to be incurred by just your program for your as the partner. So this is when the most important discussion points are going to be in process. This is where partners review that draft budget and the MOU narrative together. You're going to raise concerns and work through the revisions. So that draft budget is going to need to match what's in the narrative of that MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding. If something doesn't look right, this is the time to speak up. And that's where we're going to help you know what to ask, how to ask, and when it's time to ask. So at the final meeting, partners are asked to approve the negotiated one-stop operating budget. This approval confirms agreement on the infrastructure costs and the local service delivery system costs, and it allows the budget to be incorporated into the MOU for that program year. Program year 2026 marks the start of the new 3-year MOU cycle. So all the MOU cycles typically are 3 years, and they are amended that second and third year. This year is a brand new Memorandum of Understanding and budget, so it's going to be a clean slate to start from. This means partner commitments are being reset, and the decisions made during negotiations this year set the foundation for those future amendments and the annual budget updates. Now we're going to try something a little bit different. We're hoping this goes smoothly, but we're going to do an interactive scenario, and we're going to review a partner program narrative. So what we're going to do is talk through what a specific narrative looks like. Now, this is a random narrative we have out here, and we want you to look at it as if it's your narrative that is your role to review. So I want to start that off explaining what it is that you're looking at here. So what that means is we want you to think about this program and your program's perspective and see what stands out as the lead negotiator. So it's very important that the scope of services, the service delivery method, and the staffing levels, which is the FTEs, are all aligning. So what we'd like to do is give you, we're going to give you 1 to 2 minutes to review this narrative. There's no single correct answer or wrong answer. The responses should be based on your program requirement or your role. And once you're finished, reviewing this, we'd like you to go ahead and type your responses in the chat. So things that you are looking for are one item that may accurately reflect your program and one that may not. And then once we've identified those, we want you to go, once you've identified those, type those in the chat, and then we're going to go ahead and kind of talk through some of those. And I'll go ahead and read the narrative to you. So this partner program operates at Service Center 123 Anywhere Street and provides a variety of community-based and supportive services designed to meet their participant needs. Services are delivered off-site as direct linkage via phone. Services are offered Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. Staffing on site, 2 FTEs. So think about this in your perspective. Does this look accurate? Is there anything that's inaccurate? And what corrections would you say based off your program? I'll be quiet and give you a couple minutes now. Okay, so specifically for this narrative in general, outside of no matter what program you're working from, you guys are all accurate. It is not saying the same thing. We are basically saying that the services are delivered off-site direct linkage, and then we're also saying that the staffing is on-site. So that is inaccurate. So it needs to be one or the other, or if it's both, it needs to specify how many would be on-site and how many would be off-site. And I agree. A lot of you are saying that 2 FTEs may seem quite high, and that could be quite high for a lot of you. Some of you may have just 0.25, and there might be some of you that have 11. It just depends on which program that you're working with. So let's go ahead and jump to this next slide. In this next slide, these are questions that are often going to lead to narrative clarification, budget refinement, or any kind of follow-up documentation during the process. So as you can see here through some of these questions, as a lead negotiator, what questions would you raise next? Are these services described clearly and defined and measurable? Do the delivery methods align, and how services are funded and assessed? We already know that that did not align. Is the staffing level reasonable for the scope of services described? 2 FTEs may be reasonable, but a lot of you may not have 2 FTEs. This is going to be an important piece to pay attention to, especially since the cost of your program is going to be derived from that FTEs. So if you have 0.25 and the impartial negotiator has you in as 2, that's going to be a massive change in the amount that you're going to be paying for that program year. So what additional detail is needed to support the MOU and budget, and are there services or roles that may overlap with other partners? So these are questions that you need to run through your mind as you're reviewing the narrative, as you're reviewing your FTEs, and as you're talking with that impartial negotiator that's putting the MOU and that budget together. So I will go ahead and open it up. Are there any questions on this first section that we went through that anybody wanted clarification on or wanted to discuss in detail?
I felt like we missed an opportunity to have the Jeopardy music whenever everyone was answering. I just wanted to throw.
Okay. Someone put a note in here. Oh, Jeff did, that said, can everyone share their chat with everyone? So if anybody answered questions, and I can say none of them came directly to the host. So I think that everything is in here for everybody to share, for everybody to read through.
It does look like some people put hosts and panelists in it rather than everyone. It looks like it was about a 50-50 mix. So I think those would just be seen by you, Mikhail, and I. But
Well, maybe we
Correct.
um,
can,
Yeah.
and maybe we can share those afterwards so everyone can kind of see those if that's possible.
Yes, I can get that guys or that to you guys and we can share it out.
Okay, perfect. Um, Catherine, you would like another example on FTEs? So let's talk about FTEs. So typically the FTEs, whatever program that you might be working with, you could work with a partner, a program that has multiple partners. And we'll use a CSEP as an example. If you're in an area that has CSEP at the job center and there are 4 separate partners, they might have 0.25 FTEs, and that 0.25 FTEs would be shared across all 4 of those partners. So those 4 partners would then collaborate either during the negotiation meeting, after the negotiation meeting. It would communicate that to the impartial negotiator so they know that the 4 CSEP partners are sharing 0.25 FTEs, and they would also share how they would like to be invoiced, whether that 0.25 invoice would be done semi-annually and would be split between all 4, and all 4 would get their own invoice, or one invoice would go to one partner and then they would then share it across the 3. Was that helpful? Or
Tanya, I was just
maybe,
going to say there was a comment just saying if we could redo the same example. So I didn't know if we just wanted to kind of talk more about what's the
what?
requirements for this portion, just so they kind of know what's needed.
Okay. So how about we talk about, just to kind of clarify this description of the program, or this narrative specifically, how it would read accurately. It could say, so this partner program operates at a service center located at 123 Anywhere, and they're providing a variety of services based on the supportive service design to meet the participant needs. So that may be that that description means that they are taking in applications, and they're also providing the services on site while they're there. So the services are delivered on site only, no direct linkage, and they're going to be on site Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and their staffing on site is going to be 0.25. So that 0.25 is going to mean that the service are offered Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. They're going to have to say specifically, the office is open 8 to 4:30. Our program will be available from 12 to 1 Monday through Friday. And that could be the fill in that 0.25 instead of saying they're going to be there for 40 hours Monday through Friday. Was that helpful? Or Benton, did you want to jump in and give your another
Yeah,
example?
I was just going to say that so this portion, I'm sure most of you know that have been through the cycle before, is in section 7 of the MOU. So that, and I saw somebody say, can we, they're brand new to this and not sure what the MOU means. So that's Memorandum of Understanding. So there's 18 sections within this Memorandum of Understanding that basically each each section has different requirements, but this specifically, and we'll get to the whole thing here in a second, but this specific portion is just kind of a scenario just for everyone to kind of think about as like if this was listed as for your area, so whether it's CSEP, TANF, Title One, whatever that may be. But in section 7, when you get to that point, when you're looking at your program, if that's the role that you're in, whenever those negotiation meetings are happening or whenever the previous year's MOUs getting sent out and you're kind of reviewing to see what changes have happened and what you want to get in there for your program, it's really just making sure that what's listed is what's actually happening. So just yeah, if you know your area is providing services via direct linkage, whether it's with phone line, with voicemail, and Zoom, the more details, the better. If you put um, more out there, that's just going to make this document even stronger. Or it could be if you're Title One and you're on site, putting that you're on site out there and what like when you're there, whether it's Monday through Friday, or maybe it's a combination. Maybe you're on site part of the week and direct linkage part of the week. Every program's different, and that's okay. It's just making sure in section 7 of the MOU, when it comes to your specific program, you're capturing what your program is responsible for and what they're doing. So I know this is kind of more of just something that Tanya and I kind of discussed just to kind of think about, but obviously there's going to be more details in there. You're going to want to put yeah, exactly what you're doing, but this kind of covers some of those requirements in the MOU. Each section kind of lists the requirements. So saying whether you're on site or direct linkage or cross-trained, that's a required element of this section. And then same with how are you providing those services during regular business hours? Is it Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30? Is it listing that out there? So taking a step back though, and just MOU in general for people that are brand new, it's something that's negotiated every year. This is the first year of a 3-year cycle, like Tanya mentioned earlier. And it essentially, so every local area, there's 22 local areas throughout the state. Every local area is responsible for creating this document. And the only way to really do that is to work with each of the programs in your local area to really make sure that not just Section 7, but everything within that document accurately reflects what's taking place in that area. So like Tanya and I, we live in Springfield, so this would be we at 20 would be where we would be responsible for. So if we were creating this and say we're a part of TANF, for example, we would when we'd be working with that negotiator, we would kind of talk about, okay, how are these TANF services being provided at the ELWIA 20 American Job Center? And then we're going to work with that negotiator to make sure that this portion has everything that we want it to have, meets all the requirements. But beyond that, the MOU is more than just this. There's the first section lists all the partners that are involved in that local area for that program year. There's a couple sections that kind of tie in directly to the budget, how the MOU and the budget, which we've mentioned earlier, how they kind of tie in together. There's a couple portions at the end where there's matrices where they're talking about how referrals are made and what career services are offered. So this document really captures everything kind of going on in the local area that you represent. And this first year starts the first year of a 3-year cycle, but the next 2 years there will be amendments to this MOU, and essentially you're just capturing what's changed. So one of the main things, and I know Tanya and I have mentioned it, one thing that changes pretty often is FTE amounts, costs, and I mean, those are kind of the two things. There's obviously a ton of things that can change. A new partner could join. I won't get into all the different things that could change throughout the course of the year before the next program year. But every cycle, those edits are made to this MOU, and then the budget, same thing. Those changes are made and amendments are made to that budget. So I know that's a really high level just breakdown of what the MOU is. So if anybody is brand new to this process, Tanya and I's information will be on the last slide. Reach out to us. We love to chat more. And we could do kind of whether it's a one-on-one or with if your area has a lot of new people, we can do like a specific WIO orientation that can really dive into whatever part of the WIO process you want to learn more about. I don't know, Tanya, if there's anything else you wanted to share before we move on to the next section.
I had a couple more questions in the chat, but we will start talking about the program negotiator's role, which is going to kind of dig a little bit deeper and probably answer some of these questions. We were originally, it was the impartial lead negotiator was the first piece that we were talking about. But Amy had a question in the chat that said, in MyLWIA, it seems that our costs can be reduced if other members join, but also our contributions jump up if someone leaves the MOU. There are some partners who have no FTEs, so can you explain why that may be? So, typically, the way that it's written is all partners should have at least 0.25 FTEs. If at any time that there is a reason that they would have less than 0.25, then the lead impartial negotiator, when they're submitting their pre-program form, they're going to submit a waiver. And that waiver is going to then allow a lower FTE or a no FTE. But all of that should be discussed during the negotiation meetings. And that is the best time to ask that question. So, as an example, there might be for TAA is a program that at sometimes recently they've there's not been funding in that area, or there might not be someone in that area that needs the assistance, so they would put in a waiver for FTEs being less than 0.25 and put that in for 0. So if there's less FTEs, it will definitely increase the cost or decrease. Okay, let me say that again. Less FTEs will increase the cost to the program partners. If there's more FTEs, it will decrease the cost for those partners. Oh, I lost my chat here. Okay. I hope that was helpful. Let me see. Yes, that would be good to ask specifically those questions. And then Catherine had, what if a partner has on-site staff and program staff off-site? How do you count the FTEs? The contact list indicates several staff performing services. So the amount of FTEs should be counted. So if there's 0.25 off-site and 0.25 on-site, then on the budget spreadsheet and in the description, it's going to read as that 0.25 offsite, 0.25 onsite, but you're actually paying 0.50 FTEs. So they're both going to be included. If one's offsite is no less or is no, they're not going to pay less. They're still going to be included in that FTE and the cost. I hope I answered those questions, or Benton and I both did. If you have any other questions, you can throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and jump to the next part of the program negotiator. Okay. Yes, go ahead and reach out to us by email. We'll work with you individually. So for the program negotiator role overview, so each required partner must designate a program negotiator. This person is going to represent their program at the table and must have the authority to make the commitments, both for program and financial, on behalf of the agency. This role is critical because decisions made during negotiations directly shape that MOU narrative, the budget, and long-term partner commitments for that entire 12 months. Program negotiators are expected to engage as equals and participate in good faith throughout the entire process. That means reviewing the draft ahead of meetings, attending discussions, and raising concerns early, not after decisions are finalized. The goal is a shared understanding and agreement before anything moves to final approval. So if you are new as a program negotiator and you are on a Zoom call or you're in a meeting and there are a lot of other partners in that meeting, if you do not feel comfortable raising questions in the meeting, please make sure that you're directing that to the impartial negotiator through email or through a direct call. That way, it's at least brought up to someone and then they can share it with everyone. But know that your role at that table is to definitely ask questions, inquire, especially if it's something that you're not sure of or you don't think that it would make it through your fiscal team or your legal team for approval. A key responsibility of that program negotiator is confirming how their program will be reflected in the MOU. And when we say reflected in the MOU, that's that narrative that we just went through a few slides ago. This is going to include the service that you provide, where they're available, on-site or off-site, how customers can access them, and whether it's going to be through cross training or direct linkage. And that direct linkage could be through the phone, it could be through the internet. And sometimes, if a participant might walk in and they're giving, a phone number and a pamphlet, they can sit down and they can call that number, and someone from that program is going to answer the call right there when they are on site. They just may not be there to help them, but they can do it through the phone or through Zoom. But what's documented inside that MOU, it needs to accurately reflect how that program is being delivered. When negotiating service delivery, program negotiators must understand the 3 allowable methods under WIOA. So your program does not need to use all 3, but the method you choose must ensure meaningful, timely access during regular business hours. The decision directly affects both compliance and cost allocation. So on-site, cross-trained staff, or direct linkage are all options of how the service can be delivered. The delivery method you commit to should align with what your program can realistically support. This is where program operations, staffing, and budget will all intersect. Whatever is agreed upon here must be consistent across the MOU narrative, the budget spreadsheet, and the service matrices. And those are kind of the things that Benton was reviewing a little bit earlier. So cost sharing and budget review. As a program negotiator, you are responsible for understanding how the costs tied to your program appear in the budget. This includes both infrastructure costs and any applicable local service delivery system cost. Before final approval, it is important to confirm those numbers are accurate and aligned with what was negotiated. So you're going to see those costs as of, at the very beginning, it might cost this dollar amount for that center to be ran. Then that dollar amount is going to then filter out into the budget. And then you're going to see specifically from that full cost to run that center, what your program is committed to pay or to do non-cash, whether you're working in the resource room or whatever that may be. So it's very important that you understand that when you're reviewing it. Once the negotiations are complete, program negotiators typically work with their, internal leadership or legal teams to obtain those signatures. It's important that the MOU narrative, budget spreadsheet, and signature pages all reflect the same agreement with no conflicting information. The MOU is amended and signed annually, so accuracy here matters. I hope that helped a little bit with some of those questions if we had a lot of program negotiators. But as Benton said, if you're not comfortable putting questions in the chat, or if we're not interpreting the question that you have and giving the appropriate answer, just reach out. We can have a phone call, we can jump on a video call, or even have a conversation through email. But if you have any additional questions based off of what we just spoke about, please put those in the chat.
Yeah, and I know some of those questions about the MOU and budget, I probably should have also said like I've got a few slides here where we'll kind of talk about that as well and how it ties into those negotiations. So and we'll have another opportunity at the end for more questions. So yeah, like Tanya said, as we continue on, just keep anything that pops up, go ahead and throw that in the chat and yeah, we can answer those either live at the end or we can connect after the meeting. So
All right,
all
Benton, I'll
right,
hand it over
so
to you. I don't have any questions, so.
yeah. So yeah, this section will kind of focus on the MOU narrative and how negotiators should think about it. The MOU narrative is not a form to complete in isolation. It's the written record of decisions that were already negotiated. It its purpose is to clearly document partners' roles, services, shared responsibilities, so everyone is operating from the same understanding. Before completing the MOU narrative, negotiators should confirm agreement on how each partner delivers services, where those services are provided, and the staffing method being used. The MOU narrative should simply reflect those agreed upon decisions. If any of these elements are unclear when drafting the narrative, that usually means the issue needs to be discussed further during those negotiations. So on the screen here, these are the common issues we see during the review. They usually show up when service descriptions are vague, staffing methods aren't clearly defined, or when information in the MOU narrative doesn't match what's being reflected in the budget. So making sure that these details are clear and consistent up front helps avoid revisions later and keeps the review process moving smoothly. The budget spreadsheet is the financial companion to the MOU narrative. It should never introduce new information. Instead, it should reflect the agreements already made by partners and show how shared costs are allocated across the system. And if you've done this in the past, you'll know that like Section 7 and Section 13 work very closely with the budget. That information really needs to align. In the notes section, there's opportunities to put notes about how the one-stop operator is like who's contributing to the one-stop operator, or just in that notes section, there's a lot of pieces that really should be pulling directly from what's getting shared within the MOU. But those are kind of the two main sections, Section 7 and Section 13, that you'll kind of see the two of those documents working hand in hand. So before any information is entered into the budget spreadsheet, there needs to be agreement on these core decisions. Which costs are shared, who's contributing, the type of contribution, and how costs are allocated. The budget spreadsheet is simply the tool used to document those agreements. The information should reflect what was negotiated and agreed upon by the partners. So these are the most common budget issues we see during the review. Required payees might not be listed. The one-stop operator details in the budget don't line up with what's being described in the MOU, as I mentioned a couple slides ago. Non-cash or in-kind staffing contributions aren't described in the budget notes. The amounts in the variance table don't match the cash contributions from the budget. None of these are unusual, but they do slow things down. So taking extra time to make sure that the budget is fully complete and aligned with the MOU can avoid some of these common issues. And especially with that variance table, because that is kind of one thing that has tripped local areas up in the past, just making sure that you're only pulling those cash amounts from the budget and not total amounts, especially if you're a local area that might utilize non-cash or in-kind staffing, to just make sure when you're extracting those amounts, only pull from the cash columns when you get to that point. So I know there's some local areas that are 100% cash, so those are the easy ones because whatever's listed, that's just what's going in the variance table. But it gets a little trickier when you start using some of those other contribution methods. And with the payees, like I mentioned, if there's dollar amounts on that line, there needs to be a payee listed. If there's ever a line that doesn't have the payee listed, but there's amounts, then that's something that's a pretty common thing that we see that results in a revision. So now the signature page, these are kind of the final step. They're not a part of the negotiation itself, but by the time documents reach this point, all decisions should already be resolved. Most delays occur when completing the signature pages. Most delays occur when acronyms are used rather than spelling out the full entity or name or title, or the electronic signature box. An electronic signature might be utilized, but that affirmation box might not be marked. So those are just some of the common things that could cause a signature page to get pushed back. So here on the screen, this is the Title One. This is just an example showing the Title 1B signature page. Each required partner in your local area will complete their own respective signature form. So there's one for every possible partner. And then if your program is not one of the areas listed, there's also an other section where you can kind of fill in yeah, if you're not one of the pre-made ones on the signature page template. So as the program negotiator, you'll sign to confirm you negotiated on behalf of the program. But this is where accuracy matters most. Full names, titles, and signatures of the individual financially authorized to sign are key to preventing any delays. But I want to emphasize, and like Tanya and I were just kind of talking about, KEB is available to provide one-on-one assistance or group assistance, or if you're just kind of stuck on something, just reach out. We're one of us will be here, whether it's myself, Tanya, Drew, Thomason. I'm sure a lot of you have worked with him. We're available to provide assistance as you kind of get through the process. So don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, the goal is clarity and confidence, not guesswork. So this slide has a timeline that pulls together key milestones for program year 2026 and is meant to support proactive planning across your local area. Using these dates early rather than reacting to them later will help keep negotiations moving smoothly and reduce last-minute revisions. All required guidance, templates, and updates will continue to be posted on the WIOA implementation documents and updates page, which that link is listed here. So definitely reference that page that we've got, and Mikhail's going to send out the slides, so you'll be able to get that link from there. I think either later today or tomorrow. But yeah, essentially, Tanya mentioned earlier, but the pre-program year planning forms, those were turned in a couple weeks ago, or I guess a month ago, December 31st. So that was kind of the first milestone for program year 2026. The next step, beyond what we just talked about, all of those negotiations, but the next step for a deliverable is that report of outcomes with the preliminary budget and any additional waiver requests. So I know a lot of local areas have already submitted waivers with those pre-program year planning forms, but as you kind of get through the negotiations and potentially you've learned of something that should be listed as a waiver, there's another opportunity in there with the report of outcomes for when you get that submitted. So that due date is April 15th. And then the main due date for program year 2026 is submitting the final MOU and budget, and that's May 29th, obviously this year. And then at that point, the WIOA interagency technical assistance team will kind of start the review process of these documents. So June, July is kind of when all of these items are reviewed for compliance, and on the program side, just making sure that everything is kind of listed how it's supposed to be. And then around um, August, which it's not listed here, but around August is um, when those letters are, or September actually is when those letters are compiled and sent out. So if you've been a part of this process in the past, you'll see a letter. And if everything from your MOU and budget is accurate and there's no revisions required, then you'll get a letter saying that this is approved. Um, and then if there are any revisions that are going to be needed to get back into compliance or to maybe expand on a certain topic, it'll be listed in that it'll be listed in that letter that goes out around September. And then basically after that letter is received, October, the local areas will start working on making those edits if they got a letter that had any revisions. And then they'll get after those are made and updated and sent back in. The WIOA interagency technical assistance team will review those updated documents and then get those submitted to Illinois WorkNet. So that's kind of how the whole process from start to finish goes for program year 26. But this going back to the individuals that are brand new to this process. This cycle it happens every year. It's just this year is the first year of the 3-year cycle. Next year, these dates and everything will be similar, but it's not going to be a brand new MOU. It's going to be amending the MOU that you just worked on this year. So yeah, Tanya, I don't know if there's anything else you kind of wanted to say just for the newer people about the process or anything, or
No, but I did want to add, Michael has is there a 101 class? And we do have a WIOA basic class. And that would be really great for us to, set up another webinar possibly and have it where either we can do it individually for your local area, we can do it for your specific program, or we can open it up to everyone that would like to come to a WIOA basic class. So that would just basically go back to the very beginning and start from, what WIOA is all the way to what everyone's role is. And especially, that's what we're here for. So we don't mind giving that one-on-one. But to jump also into the questions, Benton, there's a question in the chat. Jessica asked, and this is a little specific, and I can go through it so you don't have to go back to pull the budget. So the question is specifically in the D shared cost row 77 states one-stop operator, and it includes the cost allocated among all partners for each center with the correlating contributions entered into rows 89 through 91. So it says, I don't think we have ever had anything in 89 through 91 as we don't have any other contributions. Can you explain that more? So what 89 through 91 is specifically for is for the one-stop operator. So you've got your service delivery costs that you're breaking out separately. So some local areas might take the one-stop operator cost included with all the service delivery and put that in the below sections, breaking it out how it's paid. How the budget spreadsheet is created is for the one-stop operator specifically. So if your local area had 50,000 for the one-stop operator, and I'm going to give you 3 ways that it can be done. First, that 50,000 is going to be shared across all partners. then that 50,000 that's going to be shared across all partners is going to be listed in row 89 through 91 about how that is being paid specifically for the one-stop operator. If that one-stop, second option, if that one-stop operator is only paid by, say, it's a consortium and it's only going to be paid by four of the partners, then you're only going to see that cost allocation through 89 through 91 for those four partners that are paying for that contribution. So that's the second option. The third option would be the one-stop operators not being shared across the partner. So you wouldn't see that in the line 77 to begin with, and then there would be nothing in 89 through 91. I hope that answered your question, or if you had additional questions, if you wanted to throw that in the chat, that would be great. Or anyone else that has questions, because Benton has it on the question slide now. Please put those out in the chat.
There is a question in the Q&A section that is by Brian. They said, this is only my second year as a negotiator, and one question I have is during the review process, understanding which sections of the budget are relevant to the programs I represent and are center only, and knowing what exactly I should be checking is important.
So, depending on if you're in multiple areas or if you're in one area. So, if you're getting the full budget spreadsheet sent to you, and if there's multiple locations, then you're always going to go to the shared cost all centers. That way, you know all of your costs that you're going to be responsible for. And you would go to the top and find your program. And once you find your program on that budget spreadsheet, that's where you're going to scroll down and you can see the breakdown between your infrastructure cost, your service delivery cost, and then all of your cost. So it's important to check how much it is that you're responsible for and how much that impartial negotiator that is actually the lead negotiator that's putting the budget together has listed how you're paying for those costs, whether that's going to be by cash or whether that's going to be non-cash or in-kind services. So you'll need to know how much it is and how it's being paid. Yes, I am more than happy to help with you in the future to go over any of that.
And another thing, in general, when you're looking at that, and we mentioned it during the slides, but just making sure that that FTE amount is going to be listed in the budget. So making sure that if you're only 0.25, but you're listed as 2, obviously your costs are going to be way higher. So you're making sure that that FTE amount aligns with what you're actually providing. And then just when you're at the table and the negotiations are happening, if you say last year your program was only responsible for $3,000 and then this year you're up to $10,000, there would need to be an explanation as to why it jumped so much. So just kind of working with that negotiator and asking those right questions, as Tanya and I kind of mentioned throughout the process. Ask them early, find out why there's maybe certain jumps and they can explain that. Or maybe it is something like your FTE amount, it was keyed in incorrectly. So that's just the only thing I would kind of add.
Jessica, you're welcome. That we did a webinar back in the fall that kind of did a breakdown of the cost between the one-stop operator, and it was 50-50 across all local areas. But the way it's been trained is to switch it to the appropriate lines. It doesn't look like there's any other questions out there, Benton.
All right. So like I said, I've got Tanya and I's contact information here. So I know I'm sure there's going to be a few people reaching out after we wrap up today, which is great, and we'd love to have those conversations. So don't be shy, and or if you don't have anything today, but if you get through your first negotiation meeting and you've got a question, reach out. And yeah, like I said, Mikhail's going to send out the slides and that WIOA resource page link. It's on slide 37 right here. It gets updated every year. So the most recent MOU template is out there. The most recent budget is out there. The MOU guidance for PY26 is out there. Contact lists are updated. So it's a good spot, especially if you are brand new, to kind of be able to have all those resources to pull from. But yeah, with that, I think that's everything that we had. Mikhail, I'll let you close it up for us.
Yes, thank you guys so much for all coming out and all of the lovely participation. As a reminder, I will be sending out that chat. And again, as Benton has said, these slides in the following 24 to 48 hours. With that, there will be a survey. If you guys could give some feedback on how today went and any other information, that would be lovely. Outside of that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you guys. Bye.